Welcome back to the Up in the Blue Seats podcast. Rangers win. They're on a little bit of a hot streak here. You love to see it. 3-0 in the last three games against the pretty good teams. That's what you like to see. I'm your host, Andrew Harts. We're, of course, joined as always by the post Larry Brooks, Miss Mollie Walker, the beat writer, and former Ranger Brian Boyle. Anyone who's watching the podcast right now will see that we're all in our usual spots, minus Molly, who happens to be in the Toronto airport. Yeah, she's given the view of the seating arrangement there, which looks quite comfortable, as
Yes.
most airports do. How's everyone doing? Everyone is surviving. Survived the early holidays. We're getting to the late holidays now.
We're hanging in. We're hanging
Hanging
in.
in. Yeah.
We're hanging in. That's all I feel like you can do at this point. And the
Hey, the
Rangers,
twins, the
yeah,
twins slept. The twins slept through the night last night.
that's a
Oh,
W right
Mazel
there.
tov.
I'm
That is a
Mazel
buzzing.
big
tov.
dub.
That's
See,
huge.
I am buzzing right now. It's fantastic.
on and off the ice, Brian getting wins. We like to see that. We also like to see the Rangers win. Last night took down the Maple Leafs in another revenge game. I love these revenge games that the Rangers are doing. The Preds one early on was great, and I get the Leafs this one. They won 5-2 after their 7-3 or 7-2 loss at the Garden last week, which some players seem to take some umbrage of. We'll get into that in a minute here. But Mika and Alexi Lafreniere both scored in the second. Laffy with ending his 12-game goal drought, which again, that's a good thing. We needed that. Schneider, Panera, and Mika with an empty net goal in the third. So yeah, good game, solid game. Brian, I think you described it as a weird game. Um, uh, Again, after a bounce back, much needed win, coming off the weekend high with a big OT win against the Bruins. How impressed were you with that game last night, Brian?
Well, I mean, you go up there and you try and get a win. Uh, it was a weird game. It was weird goals scored. There were weird breakdowns, I guess, but they got a win and contributions from a couple guys that probably needed it. I didn't, you know, I liked Schneider's goal a lot just because of how he got to where he got to. I know it was a bit of a interesting shot release that fooled the goalie, but I really like that. I like that Lafreniere gets on the board. It's tough when you're doing a lot of good things, and Laviolette said that prior to the game in not scoring, and then you get one, and it's kind of like not exactly how you draw it up all the time, but it is tangible. He will, I think, hopefully create more that way. And Larry said it before we started recording that this is you're getting contributions from a number of guys, and I said it like a month ago that this is just a really deep team and they win different ways. I was at the game, I saw Larry in Boston too. Like that was kind of probably as a head coach how you want to draw those up because it's like a low event game on a back to back, and they beat a really good team. So it was an impressive week.
Yeah. To me, when I watch the Rangers, it doesn't jump out at me. It doesn't scream at me that I'm watching the best team in the NHL. I don't think I'm watching the 82 Islanders or, even the 94 Rangers, but they win and they win. And you look at the standings and they're at the top of the league again. They have the best percentage. They go into Boston. They win a playoff style game. They were very proud of themselves for winning that game. I mean, that's a game they're supposedly not built to win. They're not supposed to win 2-1 games. They're supposed to win 4-2 or 5-3. And to go into Boston and beat them, especially, yes, they had won the night before against Anaheim, but there was still this, I think, hangover of them giving up 5 goals a game. There was 5, 7 last week to Toronto, and then they come back to Toronto and they win this game too. And Shesterkin gave them 2 very impressive games on the road in Boston and Toronto. He looked in complete control. They looked in complete control. Which came first, I'm not sure. But you look at them and I think, or at least I do, I appreciate what they've done. I think they've gotten just about everything out of the group, but I don't think they've gotten everything out of every individual yet. So I think while we see some deficiencies, there's probably still a lot of upside from this group too.
Yeah, I I really loved Schneider's goal against the Maple Leafs. And I feel like, I mean, when you think about when they drafted him, trading up to get him, he's a big body, physical presence that was on the scouting report for him. And it was during the time when, Gordon is saying we need to draft players that, make us harder to play against. That was the whole theme of the last few drafts. And not a lot of guys on the Rangers in particular can get to the net like that. And one of them actually now plays for the Islanders, and Julien Gauthier. He was one of the few guys that could do that when he was here, but he just couldn't finish. Braden Schneider, I'm going to write about this today. I really would like to see a lot more of that from him, because if he can really, tug on that offensive upside of his game, I feel like it just adds a whole new dimension to, their blue line if he can really start producing.
We see flashes of it too.
Yeah.
There haven't been as many this year.
No.
He's been a little bit more under the radar
He
this
had
year.
a tough start.
Gustafsson has taken off, so he's played.
Right.
He's played back a little bit more, and and it's a different dynamic than when he was with, say, Ben Harper, right, last year, or it's different when he's with Zach Jones. But he's really interesting because he came up so young and was so good. So
right away.
He has stayed at the level. There's not, he's playing behind Fox and Trouba. So, limited opportunity for him right now. But he is an overlooked player a lot of the time. And I agree. I'd like to see him step up a little bit more too.
He's incredibly strong.
Yeah. The beginning of the season was like the first rocky, so to say, part of his career. I mean, he's only been here a few years, but the fact that the first real rocky spurt came at the beginning of this season, I feel like says a lot about the player.
And it feels yeah, good, Brian.
Sorry, but I just remember playing against him, looking at him and talking to Crides after our playoff series years ago. I'm like, who is this kid? And you guys better hold on to him, because he's incredibly strong. He's got, he's courageous too. He doesn't back down. That's an element that I think, especially on your back end, and for how young he was, I was really, really impressed with. Now he's got jump. He can, and hopefully he just keeps adding and adding and adding. It isn't happy just being a part of it. Hopefully he has high aspirations, and maybe that's why he struggled a little bit at the start this year. Maybe he wanted a little more. He was forcing things, or you never know. I could get inside his head, but I like where he's at. I like him in that mix.
Well, it's interesting to me too that he's the person who Nils Lundkvist took a look at and recognized to himself, I'm not going to beat out this kid, so I'm going to be the fourth right D now, because you had the Fox Trouba there, and then here came Braden Schneider, who had been a Ranger for a half a year, but after half a year, it seemed like he was so ensconced in that role that Nils Lundkvist, who had been a first rounder, also himself said to the Rangers, "Get me out of here. I'm not going to play in the AHL until an opportunity arises for me." So it was so interesting so early how impressive Braden Schneider was.
And might I just add, what a golden retriever personality the Rangers have in him. And you guys should have heard the no joke 5-minute long answer when I sat down with him at the beginning of the season to ask him to evaluate his game thus far. Like, he knew, there was no corner cutting, and he was so beyond more so accountable than he should have been, honestly, and just really has a really good head on his shoulders. So.
And it feels like those are the kind of locker room characters that you kind of need, especially in the long grind that is a regular season. One of the things that I kind of wanted to revert back to in terms of the Maple Leafs game was, Mollie, in your game piece, you had written that a lot of the Rangers essentially, not that it's been a long while, it's only been a week, but that 7-3 loss kind of stuck in their head. You could tell that they were not necessarily pushing aside this past weekend's game against the Ducks and Bruins, because, again, very important big game to win against the Bruins, especially on Saturday. But how important was it, do you think, for this team mentally, after getting their doors beat off them at the Garden, to come back to kind of perform and to play up a level to a Maple Leafs team.
Well, I think head coach Peter Laviolette said that the team was extremely disappointed in their start in their first period against the Maple Leafs at the Garden. They went down 4-1. There was just not that good of an effort at all around. And I think they were pretty disappointed in that. Second period was better. Third period, the way Laviolette describes it, is it was up for grabs and they just, couldn't take it. But that game really was lost in the first period. So I think the fact that they came out against the Leafs in Toronto last night and played a scoreless, very tight first period just said it all, of how they wanted to approach this game, of how they knew they needed to approach this game. And I mean, Toronto's good. Toronto's really, the way that Toronto lit them up at the Garden, their star players were their star players. And even last night, Austin Matthews just 2 goals on 5 shots. He's now got 4 goals and 2 assists, I think, against the Rangers in 2 games this season. Like, sometimes that being said, I do think they probably could have marked Matthews a little bit better last night. Just a little bit. But that's a really good team. That's a really, really good team. I think it's a tough matchup for them in general. So I think the fact that they rebounded as convincingly as they did, even though, a couple fluky goals, and you could say some of them, got lucky bounces, but I always like to say that good teams create their own luck. And I think that's exactly what the Rangers did.
Well,
don't apologize.
That they sat on that for a couple of days, and they were asked about it for a couple of days, and nothing about that night sat well with them. They didn't compete. Maybe they competed for 25 or 30 minutes, but it was a game that was just an effort that was not worthy of their first half, and they recognized it. They also had, and we've talked about this before, they also had 2 days of practice.
Yeah.
Right after that. So, they went right back to work and worked on correcting their errors from that game. But so much of it was effort. It was. And that's what I think disturbed them so much about the game. They knew they hadn't given their best account. If you play and you lose, you play and you lose. But to give an effort like that, I think was not. What are you looking at?
The guy snoring across the.
Oh man, he's bad.
No, it's just getting louder. It's just getting louder. Yeah. I can't help it.
Does he have an apnea device he needs to?
No,
just cover his nose and just wake him up.
Just straight chilling on the bench with the hood over the head and just sawing wood.
Mollie's jealous, wants to curl up next to him.
Yeah, I do.
Some Z's.
I really, really do.
Well, back to the Rangers. Look, I'm happy that they had a lot of questions. Mollie has questions for this guy, but the Rangers questions popped up after that Toronto beatdown that they took, and they answered them. And I just I can't get over the fact Igor had 5 shots after all that noise was around him. Yeah. He had 5 shots in Boston. That's not a way to get your feet under you and feel confident. And he stood in there. I thought that doesn't jump off the page at how many saves he had, but that is really not easy to do, talking to goalies.
Yeah, and kind of curious about this. Now, it's good to see at least where he's getting, these reps again, getting into that kind of groove, because like I mentioned on the last episode, you want to make sure that at least, the Jonathan Quick background noise isn't getting to him. And it doesn't seem to be, especially, with a great performance last night and against the Bruins. One more thing I wanted to touch on before we get into our interview with Daniel Carcillo. Mollie, you spoke with Jimmy Vesey about, nearly going to Europe after his time in Toronto. It's a great piece. Just shows the resilience that Jimmy has, and at one of his lowest points. But what was your talk with him about, and how did all that go?
Yeah, I think Jimmy Vesey is just such a great story in general. I really appreciated him opening up to me about what that was like for him. I know he had talked to Larry a little bit about it, and Larry had talked to me about how difficult of a time he had during the COVID seasons, just because he felt like he was kind of getting phased out. He lost his game a little bit. He didn't really have an identity anymore. And, being when he signed in Toronto, being isolated, he was telling me about, and I know this from when we traveled during the COVID season, how lockdown it was in Canada. I mean, the NHL rules in general, just they didn't even want them going to the grocery store. They wanted them getting delivered. So he was isolated, he was by himself, he was on a team under a coach that pretty clearly wasn't a fan, which all came out extremely publicly in the All or Nothing documentary on Amazon Prime. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole the night before the Maple Leafs game, just kind of looking into all of it, and figured I'd try to talk to him about it. And, but it was adversity. It shaped him into the player that he is today. I mean, I don't think he would have had as much fire behind him if what happened in Toronto didn't happen when he got to New Jersey on the professional tryout. He told me, and he was like, I don't want to curse. And I was like, well, you're talking to the right paper who can print it. So, but he basically just said, F everything else. And I'm just going to go out and play. And he had a great camp, found himself a solid role in New Jersey, and parlayed it into a return to the team that he has been very vocal about always wanting to play for and always wanting to win with. So I just thought it was very interesting to hear about his time in Toronto. There was clearly something going on there with Sheldon Keefe. So I feel bad about how publicly it played out, and he doesn't think that it was right. So it was a good story to share.
Yeah, definitely a good read as well too. Larry, just kind of bouncing off of that. I know Mollie wasn't with the team when, during his first stint, but do you notice a difference in the player from who he was the first time around going through now, if like that whole experience changed him in any way?
Well, I think, he was a top six guy when he came. It's so interesting because he chose the Rangers twice.
Yeah.
There are a lot of players who, give a lot of lip service to, I want to play in the original six. I want to come to New York. I want to play for the Rangers. But Jimmy Vesey chose the Rangers twice. And under, two different circumstances, right? What is that?
Twice.
And and so once he was a highly sought free agent out of college, and one when he was looking for a professional tryout. And he was a good player his first time around. But he would sink into these stretches where he couldn't score, and then he would doubt himself. And talked about this. He's his own worst enemy in his head. And I think that's what's changed about Jimmy. I think he's now been in the league for what, 8 years, is it? And he's learned how to survive. He's learned how to adapt. I think his mental approach is much better. I think he's he's more consistent with his emotions. He doesn't get as down as he did his first couple of years here when he was counted on to score. And I think he scored 17 and 18 each year, but he was always have these stretches of 18 games, 20 games where he didn't score. Now he's in a different role, and I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him to score, although he wants to score. And so that's the difference. I think you see someone who has figured out how to be a veteran and how to be a role player in the NHL. And he's been a really good Ranger. He's had a very, very good season. He had a really good year last year. And he played well for New Jersey. He's a very good bottom six NHL player.
It's the consistency, like you said. It's being able, when the coach looks down at the numbers, who can I trust right now? He's learned that. That's such an important part of being a pro, because most teams have three guys they can rely on. You got to go score me a goal up front. And when they get tired, it's like, all right, who's next? They're going to play a lot. You got to figure out a way if you're not that guy. And yeah, he was that guy his whole life, but that's the hardest transition, and some guys can't do it. And then the mental part of the game, which is you can't tell anybody how to approach it, or I mean, I can't anyways. You just have to understand that I think he's prepared, and he's worked all of that he's done and what he's learned over the years. He's put into, that PTO, that stigma in Jersey, and turned it into, all right, I'm actually a player here. I'm a factor in the league. It wasn't the way I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. Now he's a big part of the club. He is a big part of that
Huge.
team
100%.
right now. And that in and of itself is the goal as a player. It's not numbers. It's not 25 goals. It's not 50 points. It's, am I a part of the fabric of this team? Does it matter that I play well for these guys? And I think he's understood that. And I'm really proud of just watching him. I trained with him when he was younger. As a new player in the league, we skated, like, how he's matured as a person is really impressive to me, because he's a huge asset. And it's we always cheer for the guys that are from around here anyways. And there's a lot of us that have gone there.
Can you imagine? I mean, and you knew him back then, but I remember how young he was, how young he looked when he broke in the league. And
Guys,
actually,
he looks the same. Let's be real.
he no training,
couple scars
training
though,
camp.
no.
Yes.
It was the World Cup of Hockey. Was that 2016 when he came, and so I was actually in Toronto for the first few weeks, and so I got to training camp late. I got to New York late, and I walked into the Ranger room and I was looking for this guy. I said, "All right, where's Jimmy Vesey?" And it was like, that's Jimmy Vesey. What is it? He's 14. He can't be. Wait, that's not Jimmy Vesey. Come on. It was Jimmy Vesey.
It's always easy to root for a guy like that, and especially like you said, chose the Rangers twice.
I tried to come back too. They just didn't want me.
Well, that's
like 3 different times.
Maybe you didn't change enough for them, Brian. What can I tell you?
I wasn't changing. I wanted to. I just. You get what you get.
You get what you get. One last thing before we throw it over to Daniel Carcillo. Brian, you made your debut on MSG Network Boston. How did we feel we did? Do you have a personal review? When are you back on TV?
A personal review.
Give it to us.
It was different. I was looking at a camera that I couldn't see anybody, and I just did a couple segments. Honestly, it was light work. A lot of hanging around waiting. I got to do or I was just listening into Lavi's little pregame scrum. I got to say hi to him for a bit. I saw some of the guys walking in. Nice to catch up with them. They didn't tell me that they were spending the night in Boston, had the day off. I would have changed some plans around probably and hung out with them for a little while, but probably a good thing I didn't. There's enough going on here. It was good. No, there was no post game. So after the second, I kind of took off so I could say goodnight to my oldest. But yeah, it was great to be kind of working for one team. So I can, we're unbiased, but I got a team that I can that's my,
we're unbiased here.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus and settle in on someone specific. Well,
it was such a boring, like the first period, pick me some clips that we could talk about. I'm like, this is not easy.
Sometimes that happens.
Thank God that there was a goal, and then the pasta thing. I mean, not thank God, but at least there was something to talk about. Everybody seems to be okay. I'm like, I got nothing here.
It's the hardest part in broadcasting when there's nothing to talk about. It's like, what the hell do I talk about now? Well, the Rangers didn't want you, but I'm glad MSG wanted you. So that's always a good thing. We like to hear that. Larry, we appreciate you coming on as always. Hope you have a good holiday. We'll speak to you next week. Okay.
See you next week.
See you, Larry.
Back on the Up in the Blue Seats podcast, and we're joined by another former Ranger. We've got 2 Rangers on here, which is pretty freaking cool. He played with the Rangers in 2013-14 during that Eastern Conference Championship run. It's appropriate that he's positioned right there. If you're watching on video, he has one Stanley Cup on one side and one that he won on the other side when he won with the Blackhawks. He kind of flanked his Ranger tenure right in between those, so it's very appropriate that's set up that way.
Ranger fans will love that.
Yeah, exactly. He's the co-founder and COO of Healing Realty Trust, which we'll hear a little bit about later on. It's CarBomb, Daniel Carcillo. Daniel, appreciate you coming on. How's everything going with you?
Going good, buddy. Yeah, it's going good. I'm fresh out of a recent ceremony and just enjoying life, enjoying kind of the year-end review as most of us do here, and just counting my blessings, man. Pretty grateful for everything that I have.
I saw a little bit of that. I saw a little bit of that on I think it was Twitter, where you've kind of taken a new, well, I don't know if it's new to you. I've followed you a little bit, but you've taken a different approach than sort of how what you did when you played, but you still kind of, I think you mentioned it, and correct me or step in here at any point that, when you get angry or upset when you played, you had a certain outlet for that. Now it's different for you, and things that have gone wrong, or maybe some frustrations in your life, you've gone and taken a different path. Like these ceremonies, I want to hear a little bit more about them, because as we just talked about a little bit off the recording, I got 5 kids now. Things can get frustrating for me. So can you walk us through a little bit of these?
Brian's like, I need tips.
Ceremonies? Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to breathe more. I do some certain things. Just go outside and run for a while until I'm too far away to get back. Call it Uber.
Man, that's we all have different tools that we use, right? One of my tools is definitely exercise and meditation, cold exposure. And if I can't figure some things out, so I'll take you just really quickly through my last kind of 2 weeks. The last 2 years of my life in business have been really difficult. I feel like I've been wronged. And, if you feel like you've been wronged, I'm 39 now. We came up in hockey. You want to hold somebody accountable, right? But you're carrying that revenge and that anger and that frustration. And then, I listen to a lot of philosophy now, and it's, you don't get what you deserve. Kept attracting that into my life, and it was not serving me anymore. But I couldn't figure it out with meditation, with breath work. I knew that I was doing it and that I had a radical role in it, but I couldn't quite pin it. And so I was very used to using this part of me, and it just, again, it wasn't serving me. I kept getting this stuff back in my life where I'm like, well, I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to do these types of things. I feel like I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? Well, it's because I was still wishing harm on these individuals that I feel that wronged me. And until I'm able to let that go, I'm going to keep attracting that into my life. And so that was a realization in the ceremony, where this medicine, you can bring a problem into the ceremony, and this medicine will help. You basically talk it through with somebody that you trust and respect for 4 hours, and you'll get to these types of realizations, and then it's on me or you to implement them into my life. So the first step that I took on Saturday night when I got out of it and back kind of into my body is I made 3 calls and made amends. And then, as people call me, they're still calling me about these businesses, wondering what happened here and there. And I just don't entertain them. I don't say these people's names anymore. I genuinely wish them the best. And I need to move on with my life. So that's how you use some of this medicine. And it's just an amazing recovery tool. That's like on the spiritual side. But then, Brian, for us in our brains, it connects different brain hemispheres, and it flushes out inflammation, and it reconnects and reboosts kind of the nervous system. And so it's got a whole host of benefits. Yeah. If we have an hour, I can really dive in, but I know we've only got 20.
Yeah. And honestly, like that's
how I
that's why, I mean, again, it makes sense to me. It's wild to hear about, and appreciate you breaking down. Did you ever think that, like, your post-playing career, this is what you'd be doing? Like, how exactly did it kind of fall into this way, after you came off the ice?
I was dealing with mild dementia, and you guys saw, for the first 4 years, I just wanted to tear everything down. Maybe Brian saw everything that was wrong. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I noticed that
Pretty
you were
remarkable.
A cerebral human. Like, your mind was always going. We sat next to each other on the plane a lot, played a lot of cards, and you had strong opinions on certain things. But I was, having played against you, and you yapping at the red line in warm-ups, and I just thought you were a caveman. And then getting to know you, and you know, you had intelligence, you would think about things, and you'd ask a lot of questions too. It was just like I was like, I never really met anybody like this guy. So we just talked about those ceremonies, and now I know Mollie wants to know about this. But how did you get the nickname CarBomb?
So Riley Cote, man, we were at I think it's called Barney's. Remember that bar in London that all the boys go to, the patio bar?
I never got to London.
You didn't? Oh,
no,
good for you.
Probably good.
Yeah, you saved your liver. So we were just standing there, and I think it was 2000. It was right after I got traded for Upshaw, and he's like, "Man, we need a nickname for you. Like, you need a nickname." And you know how I was, like, on and off the ice. I was going right, and he's like, "It's got to be CarBomb," and everyone's like, "I'm like, damn, that's a pretty good nickname." So, and then it just kind of stuck, and then I played 2.5 years in Philly, and my play just backed it up. For sure.
CarBomb, boom.
You came up on our last podcast, and I like I like uttered your name under my breath, and my mom texted me after the fact and called me out so hard. It was like, you used to stand on the couch when you would fight, and I would scream CarBomb.
Is this when I was on the, are you a Philly fan?
No, it was when I was in high school when you were with the Rangers.
I got fond memories.
I'm curious to hear your
I just
memories of playing with Brian.
Yeah, it was Brian has a presence about him, and he's like it was strange, right? Because I don't think guys realized how tough he was, because he was an amazing player, like very skilled and just good at his position, but I mean, and it would take a lot for him to like explode. I always found that pretty funny, but when he did, it's like, geez, like, look out. But he was always great in the room. I remember that he was a guy that, he was pretty soft spoken, but I always felt a draw towards following his example on the ice, and I think a lot of guys did. And just an amazing teammate, never in a bad mood. Him and his wife and his kids, just like, you could tell he was a good family man. And so, I mean, yeah, he's just
that was beautiful.
A good teammate. Yeah, man.
Brian, you should put that as your Yelp review.
I have a favorite memory of that run, and it was when I attempted to throw sauce to Car. I don't know if you were coming out of the box.
Probably.
After, like, we were winning the game. We knew we were winning the game, and things kind of got a little fun.
Yeah.
And I tried to throw a sauce. It was like end over end. You catching the pass was probably the best part of the play, but people don't realize that. Only probably you and I do. It was such a burger. Then you finished off a breakaway, and you go right to the glass, and there's the photo of the two, double pistols.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Almost like Radko Gudas ripped you off last playoff screaming at the goalie's face. You did that to all of Philly fans in that section. And
you just saw a bunch of middle fingers in his direction. Yeah. It was just like a bunch of middle fingers from the glass, and he's just Carcillo is just looking straight at them with like eyes are bulging out of his head, like, yeah.
Oh,
that sauce. So it was a backdoor backhand tap, and the game was out of hand already. And this is playoffs, dude. Wasn't it? Wasn't it the first round?
Yeah.
And Ray Emery was in net, my man. We all miss you and love you. And so I tapped it in, and then the ref was standing right there. So I came around the corner, I remember, and I just looked at him and slash. And there's an angle of that recording where he's like this. And then I don't remember what I was saying, but I remember I was just standing, staring at them, and you came up, and everybody was like, "Okay, man, like let's go," and everyone hugged me, and then I looked, and I was like, I'm still standing there. I just blacked out.
It was awesome.
But that's such a sick picture. Yeah, that was cool. That was a good moment. And then, dude, yeah, scoring. So you giving me that sauce, and then Zuccarello with the backhand spinorama game 7 G-dub. That was
insane.
Pretty sick.
How'd you see it though? I watched that. I've seen that.
I didn't, dude. I watch it back, and it's those passes that come in. I don't know
went to
how
3 people.
I know. I swear to God, I don't know how I put that in. I don't know how.
Oh, it was unreal, man. Yeah. That was so much fun. Then
right.
Forget the linesman, but he was very aggressive. He grabs people hard.
Yeah,
I don't blame you. I actually didn't even see it. That really that sucked.
You know what? It goes back to like the lessons I've learned, right? You don't get what you deserve, you get who you are. And I was not a nice guy, and I always joked with my buddies back home, like, I'm gonna go out hitting a ref. I'm gonna beat the wheels off of a ref. That's how I'm gonna end my
go out.
NHL career. And then I hit him. The thing is, obviously, I played another year with the Blackhawks and we won again. But
beat us.
Our coach just wouldn't. He just wouldn't put me back in, and I understood why, because he's like, I don't know what these refs are gonna do, if they're gonna hold you accountable and then hold our team. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm like, dude, thank you for just even saying that to me, because most coaches would just shy away from it and play mind games. And so I completely understood, and I just tried to, like I did with Chicago in 15, man, play the music, have fun, be light, just try to bring something to the table,
That was another impressive thing. Like that was a bad bounce. And, when we had a good chance of advancing, we were a good team, and Dan had to swallow that pill, and we brought in Dorsett too. And we had, we had too many guys. We had 13 guys for 12 spots. So they kind of rotated a little bit, but everyone was a good guy. Everyone. Okay, when it was your turn, you did an unbelievable job of bringing that fire, but also contributing offensively, which is so hard to do when you play short minutes, man. Huge goals for us. So, I could thank you for a lot of those memories, because, game 7 in round 1, if we lose that, it's over. And I have these lifelong memories of going on that run, playing cards and having a blast, letting that Adam, the intern, steal my money on ace king suited and poker. I'll never forget that.
You don't forget, do you?
Dude, Brian. Like, I think there was a point where I maybe pulled you aside, and I was like, dude, you should think about not playing cards.
Yeah.
Like, give it a serious go.
Maybe take a break, take a breather.
And he did.
I think someone bought me a book. Did you buy me the book? Somebody bought me a book.
You bought him the book.
Was it Hank's? What was the thing that we did when you got on the back of the was it Hank's book?
Wine lottery?
The wine lottery, was it that?
Maybe.
And I bought him, it was my turn or something, and I bought him a cashmere sweater, and I think I bought you the poker book.
Well, I appreciate it, because it worked out for itself as I got a little older. I clawed back. We'll say I'm even, in case anybody's listening.
Just for sake, we'll say I'm even. I broke even.
Yeah, listen. Anytime you play cards,
didn't get a playoff bonus, but
you got a life lesson in cards. Yeah, exactly. That's all that matters. Dan, we're gonna let you go on this one here. 100 fights, 1,200 penalty minutes, 9 suspensions. I mean, needless to say, you were indeed a true fighter out on the ice. Any one fight that stands out to you that you're most proud of, you take a lot of pride in? Anything come to mind for you?
I guess it's probably the only reason I'm saying this, just because Missing Curfew just reposted it, but the one punch against Chris Barch when I was in Phoenix, and just give him the old Muhammad Ali. That was kiss the blue line. That was nice. Yeah, that or Sean Thornton, the Winter Classic one was a good one too.
I gotta imagine fighting out in the ice. I was at Fenway, right? Sick. If I recall. There's that Fenway, and I can only imagine, as if it's not cold enough outside, you're fighting with your knucks out there. That had to be some brutal shots you had to take. But listen, we're gonna let you go here. Again, we appreciate you coming on with us. Co-founder, CEO, Healing Realty Trust, Daniel Carcillo. You can follow him at CarBomb Boom 13 on Twitter.
Yes.
Still representing the nickname. Gotta love it.
Still repping it.
Gotta. You will forever be CarBomb. Daniel, appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
And that'll put a bow on episode 137 of Up in the Blue Seats, our Rangers podcast from the New York Post. Before we get out of here, we got to dish out some stars. Brian, who's your number one star of the week?
Igor. We got to give it to Igor. There were a lot of questions after the drubbing he took, and I didn't think they were all fair. I mean, there was a lot of odd man rushes and not a lot of structure in front of him. And we've said it, goalies thrive on that. Then he goes into Boston and gets 5 shots in a very low event period. And it's hard to find your game. And he stood in there, made some big stops when he had to. He's got a little momentum now, so I'm giving it to Igor.
There you go. Yeah, Igor needs the momentum. It's like we talked about. It's going to be important for him to steal a couple of games, especially since the Rangers can be a little shoddy on defense. So those games he's able to steal, do his thing. It's fantastic. Number 2 star of the week for me, I'm going to go with, let's go Vincent Trocheck. I have 2 guys in mind, but I'm going to go Troche for number 2 just because he had 2 goals against Boston, including the game winner in OT. Troche has been a revelation. He's one of your guys, Brian. I know that, especially no one could have seen this coming. I feel like when the Rangers brought him in and whatnot, he's kind of taken the reins and he's taking him as far as he can at this point. You just hope stay healthy, keep doing his thing, and a little more heroics in overtime never hurts you in that sense. Yeah. Number 3, and you mentioned Horace. I'm gonna go with the Clydesdale here, and I think you can agree with me on this one. I'm going to go number 3 because now he is the third. He has the 3rd most goals in New York Rangers history, past Adam Graves, and it's crazy. I'm not sure if you saw the tribute video that they posted on social media where how Kreider. Oh, it's a great video. It's actually narrated by Gravesy, and it's
that's awesome. I'll check that out.
It's a phenomenal watch because you see him be drafted and this little skinny twig of a kid, and now it's like he's 32, he's a man, he's the man. I've always referred to him as the de facto captain. I know you're a big fan of his as well.
I got to watch him in college, and then we drafted him, when I was still there. So, I mean, he's from the Boston area, and we always pump those guys up, him and Vesey. But it's a guy that, he moved down to, Southern Connecticut to be closer, and it's his life. That's his home. He's been a Ranger forever. He's just the guy's all time. He does everything every year, every summer to prepare and get better and better. He's a great man. Really is. He loves that team. Just wants to win.
That's one thing that I think Ranger fans want to see as well too, is him eventually raise the cup over his head.
What's he doing on that second goal though? I want him to close that guy out in the corner. I'm gonna text him later.
What's wrong with you? How dare you? Hey, listen, nobody's perfect, even though you may be number 3 on the goals all-time list. But we're going to get on out of here. As always, we're going to thank Jake Brown for helping in producing the show. You can catch up on all episodes of the podcast by subscribing to Up in the Blue Seats on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching us right now on the New York Post YouTube sports page, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. What's your favorite Christmas movie? Brian, what's your favorite Christmas movie? You have one?
I wait till Christmas Eve to watch Christmas Vacation.
Oh, classic. Yeah.
Just once a year I watch it. Right after the kids are down, I put it on. Declan tried to get me to put it on last night, and I set it into the little voice remote. And I'm like, what am I doing? We can't watch this until Christmas Eve. So I think this year he's going to watch. He's 8 now. I think he's going to watch with me for the first time. He's probably going to hate it 10 minutes in, but he really wants to watch it. I'm really building it up. So we'll see how it goes.
You got to ingrain it in his memory. I've got the moose cup with the eggnog that I always break that out right on Christmas. Yeah, Christmas Vacation is a classic. Good call.
Oh, yeah.
Good call, Brian. You can follow us all on Twitter, Mollie Walker. That's 2 E's, 2 R's. Bry Browse 22. Myself, Andrew Harts, without the E. Big thanks to Daniel Carcillo coming on as well too. So for Brian Boyle, Larry Brooks, Mollie Walker, and myself, Andrew Harts. Thanks. Happy holidays to all of our listeners. Have a wonderful Christmas. We're not going to see you guys until next week. So have a good, happy, healthy, joyful with your family, friends, whoever you're spending it with. We always appreciate you guys checking out the podcast. Thanks for listening to Up in the Blue Seats podcast. Merry Christmas. Later.